Thanks for tuning in for this special edition of Tiny Pulpit Talks. I'm Reverend TJ, and we filmed this for our young people who are participating in our week-long fun summer camp, and it's about Juneteenth. We realize that we address these issues in a way that's targeted to younger people, but the issues surrounding the birth and the practice of Juneteenth are essential to all of our spiritual lives. Learning the history, learning more about the resources, about why it is important, why it started, and why it must keep going no matter what, are important for all of us. So please enjoy this presentation to our young people. Share it with young people you may know. But I hope this will not be the end of your learning. I know it will not be the end of my learning. I hope together we can build a more just and equitable world by doing this kind of engagement with love and justice. May it ever be so, and enjoy the episode. Welcome to this very special edition of Tiny Pulpit Talks. I'm Reverend TJ FitzGerald, your Minister of Community Care and Engagement. And what we are talking about today is something that has a lot of roots in Texas, a lot of roots in some of the things that this church cares about very deeply. We are talking about the holiday Juneteenth that is coming up on June 19th. Who is celebrating Juneteenth? That's the question. What is Juneteenth? And a lot of people think they know about that. General Order 3 is something that was issued in 1965, and it arrived in Texas 2.5 years. 2.5 years, that's a long time, after the signing of the Emancipation Proclamation. That is what Juneteenth is. It celebrates the arrival of the word of freedom, of the end of people who had been enslaved, of their bondage on Galveston Island in Texas. That is why Texas is the first state to recognize Juneteenth as a holiday in 1939. That's when it became a state-paid holiday. It's only after that that it has moved around into other parts of the country, and now in 2021, it was signed into law as a federal holiday. So it's one of the federal holidays. I think it's still a federal holiday coming up, no matter how people might view it. This church and everyone I know acknowledges it as a federal holiday. Now, I'm going to open this up so I can be sure to get some of these things correct. So, one of the people who's extremely important to think about where Juneteenth is concerned is a resident of Fort Worth named Opal Lee. We should all think about Opal Lee right now because she had been ill lately. She had gone to Cincinnati to inaugurate the 30th anniversary of the Underground Railroad Museum, which is a phenomenal museum that everyone should go to. And on her way there or somewhere around the trip, she became ill. So first, I just want to say, if this in any way makes it to Miss Lee, I just want to say we love you and we're praying for you and we hope you and your family's health is wonderful and that you heal. Because I say this because Opal Lee is a national treasure, is really an international treasure. She's a teacher at her roots. This church is full of teachers. I hope that you have many teachers in your life. I have teachers in my life. Her education background is what helped her forge the path to make Juneteenth a national holiday. Many of the national holidays we have that recognize people of color or that concern the lives of people of color took tremendous effort, took all kinds of work to do, even against the headwinds that so many others had faced. They persevered. Martin Luther King Day had its champions like Stevie Wonder, and Juneteenth has its champion, and that is Opal Lee, who is a treasure. One of the things that Opal Lee did in 2016 to start to help people start to recognize Juneteenth was she traveled the 1,400 miles from Dallas to DC, stopping in cities along the way to walk 2.5 miles in that city. Why would she walk 2.5 miles, you're asking? Because to represent the 2.5 years it took from the signing of the Emancipation Proclamation for news to get to Texas, to Galveston Island, to free the people who were suffering enslavement there. So that 2.5 is a really important thing. It's a really important distance. If you are thinking of ways to celebrate Juneteenth, that is one way to consider doing, is really marking off the 2.5 miles and walking that distance or running that distance or doing whatever you want to do. You'd be honoring the work of Opal Lee, and you'd be honoring the tradition as well. So that's not the only way to celebrate. I actually think one of the most interesting things about Juneteenth is how it was started to be celebrated. It was celebrated for the first time 1 year later, in 1866. It was 65, it was June 19th, 1965. By 66, people were already celebrating. Now at the time, freed Black people in Texas still could not rent space. They couldn't find places to celebrate. And so the first places that Juneteenth was celebrated was churches. Churches posted celebrations, they had music, they had all kinds of invitations for people to come and commemorate that day, that Juneteenth. Now, it wasn't always right on that day. I mean, it was around those periods. And one of the first official civic celebrations that wasn't just in a church was also in Texas. A park was purchased in Austin for $1,000. And that was the first time on civic grounds people could come and celebrate Juneteenth. So Texas has the tradition of being the place that it was born, where the delivery of General Order 3 happened and people were freed and it started. Then it also has the distinction of being the place where the first religious observance or the first church-based observance and also the first civic. So Texas has a lot to do with Juneteenth. It took a while for it to get out and beyond. So one of the things that Opal Lee said recently when she was sick, from her hospital bed, she put out a notice to everyone talking about Juneteenth. And this was in Dallas Morning News. She said, Juneteenth is about freedom for us all. Not just Texans, not just Black people, but everybody. And this year, she said this especially, I especially want to see more young people getting involved in Juneteenth. It's up to the young folks to keep that freedom moving forward. So you've heard about the freedom, you've heard about how this can impact people's lives, and you've heard from the mother of Juneteenth that it's good to keep celebrating this. Everyone can celebrate it, especially young people and the young people in your lives. So one other way to celebrate this is knowing about it. Don't just take my word for these things. There are entries, there are books, there's all kinds of things you can find out about Juneteenth that you can share with other people. Just talk about it and ask other people what they know about Juneteenth. It's no different than talking about other holidays and traditions that you may have in Christmas and things like that. Another is by letting people know that Texas led the way in this important issue, this important celebration in the lives of these people who were impacted by the institution of slavery. Texas has got a lot going on in it right now that a lot of people object to and other people are, having a lot of trouble with. Always remember that even though it may feel like people in power are winning, are doing things that we don't agree with, this is your state too. And you have the right to remind people that we stood at the beginning and at the foreground of a lot of issues that changed for the good, the civil rights and the lives of people in this country and in this state. Third, you can support the work of Opal Lee. There are books about Opal Lee. She's written books. You can get those books. You can go on a walk to remember just like she does, and you can honor her that way. You can think about ways that you can interact with her organizations and her family, and took this long road of freedom back to Texas. And then one of the most important things you can do is to participate in celebrations that are happening. I'm wearing white today because Hawaii was the last state, I think, or the second to last. It was the 49th state to recognize Juneteenth as a state holiday, and I was honored to be invited to the first celebration in Kapiolani Park. And the organizers were a group of people of color in Hawaii, and they said anyone who came should wear white. I didn't ask, I didn't get, I didn't, object, or I just did what I was told. And I had a wonderful, beautiful time just learning about the celebration that they were having and participating. And these are some of the things that are going on. One of the things about Juneteenth that's so interesting is that the celebrations that you'll find in history range everything from concerts, blues concerts, to dances, to church services, to all kinds of other things that are lifting up the people that are celebrating the traditions around Juneteenth. So the last thing you can do is just look for these celebrations and take part. You don't have to take the lead. You can just go and show up and celebrate. So these are just some background on Juneteenth, why we talk about it. I hope you learned something in this Tiny Pulpit Talk. And if you didn't, that's fine. Send me a note. What did I get wrong? Or what more could I learn? Or where else should I go look? This is just the beginning of a lifelong discussion and a lifelong learning that we're all doing. And I hope this helps in some way. And I hope that you have a wonderful Juneteenth. I hope you celebrate it in a way that's meaningful for you and in a way that honors its founders and the reason why we are celebrating it. So go in peace, practice love, blessed be, amen, and I will see you on Sunday. Bye-bye.